You're listening to The Drew Yari Show. Drive!
Yo.
Hey.
Yeah, what's going on, bud?
Not much. What's going on with you? Let me just turn down my speakers a little bit. Okay, that's good.
Good.
I'm going to shut off Facebook so that we don't get the noise from it. And put mute on that. And we're good. Ready whenever you are. Or have you already started?
I am ready, Freddy.
Okay.
I guess... Yeah, we already started. We don't have to do an intro. Hey, what's going on, guys? It is a special War Games post-show with myself, Drew Yari. This is the Drew Yari Show. Joined by the lovely Mr. Jeff Lippman.
The lovely. Thank you. Thank you for calling me lovely. Yeah. This is going to be a very groggy review show, Charlie Brown. I took a nap during the pre-show. You apparently had some troubles during some of the matches, but between the two of us, I'm sure we saw everything.
Actually, I had trouble during two matches. I don't explain what they are. And there's like maybe two extra things I want to bring up. Not like anything extraneous, but just extra shit.
Yeah, let's not be too strenuous here.
Yeah,
we're barely holding on.
This should be a very cut and dry episode. So War Games happened.
It did.
It did. It just happened. War Games. It was the date is December 5th today, in Orlando, Florida, at the Performance Center. And we'll start off with the first match, which was the Women's War Games match.
Wait. Did you see the pre-show?
Was there a pre-show?
There was a pre-show, and I guess that means you didn't see it. Okay, I was just wanted to get your impressions of Denise Salcedo on it, because, you know, she's sort of from the, quote, enemy, end quote, figure four online, but she's also, you know, someone who loves everything and loves all wrestling, which is great. That's terrific, if it's true. But I didn't see the pre-show, so, and neither did you, so...
Well, I did and I didn't. I just had it on the background while I was editing last night's show I did with RJ for our Patreon show. So, wasn't really paying attention. I did see her, but again, I had it on mute, so I just was like, "Oh, it's what's her name?" That's literally my only impression. I mean, I don't really know the girl too much. I just know she's, you know, friends with Sean Ross Sapp, who people seem to hate. I mean, I don't really dislike the guy, and I don't really like the guy. I'm just kind of like, he's there.
He's very thin skinned. That's it. Aside from that, he's fine. He's good. You know, he's good. I mean, Steve and I had a little issue with him unilaterally. I mean, he doesn't know this, but, you know, he posted a few weeks ago that he's not a journalist. Well, I mean, he is a journalist. If he's not a journalist in wrestling, who is? But, I mean, aside from that sort of semi-convenient, you know, deflection that I'm not a journalist, I don't, aside from being thin-skinned and he tends to block a lot of people, I don't have any issue with Sean Ross Sapp. And I've only heard the Denise show once, because it dropped on my feed for free, and so I listened to it. And, you know, she's nice. She's got, you know, she has a nice disposition. She's excited. She's optimistic. She's happy. Yeah, I mean, a little bit young for me, a little bit too enthusiastic for me, but, you know, I mean, she seems to have a sincere enjoyment and passion for wrestling, and that's great. You know, it's not for me. You know, it's for people that are much younger than me, and that's cool. I was genuinely curious to see how she did on a WWE pre-show, where she's probably a little bit more scripted, and and then has to maybe be a little bit careful with what she says. Which, I mean, she's the right choice because she does seem to love everything. So, but I didn't see it. So, what can I say?
I mean, there's just really one time where she said something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, where she posted something about Cross, and where she said something like, "Oh, he gets no reaction. When is Scarlett coming back?" And I just found that kind of well. Here's the thing. I just found that kind of odd for her to say because she had him on her show, and she was like, being buddy with him and chumming up, like, "Ooh, so tell me about your first date with Scarlett." It'd be like Jeff. It'd be like if I have you on my show and we're talking, and we're being friends and laughing it up, and then I post something on Twitter going, Hammerlock Hangover. Nobody listens to that show.
Nobody does.
I'm just saying. The point I'm trying to make is what she did felt like very backhanded. If you know what I mean. I don't know.
I understand what you're saying, but I mean, her job isn't to be buddy with people. Her job, it is to be wrestling analysis. So, he was getting no reaction from the crowd. I don't know whose fault that was. And that's probably a topic for a different show. But listen, everyone's saying it now. They were just 50% of the people weren't saying it before, and especially a lot of people in sort of our sphere, because a lot of people in our sphere of the podcast universe know him personally, and he's a good guy, and he's interactive, and he's been friendly with them, and some of them he was a fan of before he was even in wrestling. So there was a lot of bias on that side. I like Cross. I mean, I don't know him. I'm not one of them. I don't have any personal relationship with him, but I liked him in Lucha. I liked him in Impact. I liked him on some of the other stuff that I saw, MLW, etc. I liked him in NXT, but on the main roster, just something was wrong. Something didn't fit, and I blame the main roster for changing and tweaking his character about 6 different times in less than 6 months, and for bringing him on there without his entrance and his character, and without everything that worked, the great entrance, with Scarlett, and coming in as an ass kicker. They had him come in sort of slowly and silently, and it was, I don't know, it was like they wanted him to move like Kane without being Kane. I don't know, again, the cross subject is something that, somebody can write a short book on. And, meanwhile, he signed to do a movie, which is exactly what, I said he and Scarlett should just drive west. They should pick up Braun Strowman and go to Hollywood and become movie stars because they can. And looks like that's what they're all doing. I mean, I think Strowman's in a movie, or Cher rather, and it sounds like Cross is signed to be in a movie that's of a respectable budget, and terrific. Scarlett, was here in Baltimore just yesterday at an MCW show, and she made herself known in a match, and so they'll be fine. They're stars, and they'll find stars. It's just a shame that they couldn't be stars on the biggest wrestling stage in the world. But I guess none of this has to do with War Games, does it?
Oh no, we're gonna get to War Games. I was started off with War Games, and then you started off with a Denise Saucedo question. So, yeah. But yeah. Anyways, we're happy for Cross. But long story short, we're all happy for Cross. Anyways,
I'm looking forward to the
movie. First match of the night, you had the women's War Games match. Raquel Gonzalez, Io Shirai, Cora Jade, and Kaylee Ray against Dakota Kai and Toxic Attraction, Mandy Moore, Gigi Dolan, and JC Jane.
Mandy Moore?
Mandy Rose, I'm sorry.
Mandy Moore is someone different entirely.
Mandy Moore is on This Is Us. Mandy Rose is the NXT Women's Champion.
Right. That would have been interesting if you had Mandy Moore in there.
It certainly would. But, what'd you think about the match?
I had mixed feelings. Let's start with, it certainly was colorful in that room. A gripe of mine for a long time is that NXT is sort of dark and dank and, basically two-tone, and it certainly wasn't dark, dank, or two-tone. It was the other extreme. I felt like we fell into like a like a candy machine or something that they exploded all over the world. The match itself, I actually thought it was fun, but it was sloppy at times. There were a lot of missed moves. Some of them were pretty big impact moves. I thought that Gigi Dolan for most of the match was the MVP. And in second place, probably Io Shirai, which should be no surprise. She's a veteran and she's been in War Games before. This was not the women's War Games match from last year, which was sensational. Maybe one of the best War Game matches. Actually, both War Games matches last year were sensational. Mm-hmm. But I think last year I actually liked the women's match more than the men's match, just because there was more thinking involved. But it was fun. I didn't like the ending. I mean, Cora Jade has been sneaking these wins in the whole time. They could have protected her with the separated shoulder and the self-medication or healing by, not self, but by Io instead of the medical staff. But I guess as the opening match with nothing on the line, no stakes, it really wasn't a 2.0 versus 1.0 match. So faces win is sort of, wrestling 101. So I guess that's what happened.
Yeah, I thought the ending was just really weird because I don't know enough about Cora Jade. I haven't really seen too much of her work. I mean, she has something there. I mean, obviously they like her enough to give her a big spotlight like this, but I don't know, like the whole thing with her arm or shoulder, dislocated. I thought that was random because it's just like, okay, are they going to get her out of the match? And it's just like Io Shirai kind of came off as almost like kind of an asshole because the doctors are about to take her out of the ring and she's like, no, let me. And then and then she pops it back into place and it's just like, if I'm Cora Jade, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you're not a doctor. Let the doctors do this. So, I mean, I think
it's not like Alexa Bliss, who's told us before many times that she's double jointed and that she pops her own shoulders in. I mean, we've never seen this from Io Shirai before, so it was very confusing to me. It was like Lethal Weapon without the setup.
Right, and it's just like, I think it would have added more to the match if it came down to 5 versus 4. Like, it would have, the stakes would have been higher, even though there really weren't stakes, but, for each team there would have been stakes, where it's just like Raquel and Io have to carry this team on their own. Or no, 4 versus 3, I'm sorry.
Right, 4 versus
3.
There was a point where it looked like Kaylee Ray was going to turn on our team, which, sort of fits with her character, but she didn't. But she looked very confused. Like, it looked like she thought she was going to do that, and then it was Wade who cleaned it up and said, well, I think she was trying to be helpful there. It's like, sure, it looked like that to me. But then she remembered, oh, my face now. But
that was weird.
It was fun, but we have to, when we look at NXT, we have to watch it and remember that it's not trying to be the third brand anymore. It is very much, your Division 2 developmental squad, and that's what we're seeing.
Right, and, WWE is going back to the well, which is, let's create our own homegrown stars because we can't rely on the indies anymore. And, before there was an AEW, NXT was kind of like its own AEW in some aspects. And then AEW came along and went, we're just going to bring in everybody from the indies. Every star from the indies. Because, Tony Khan has a big fat checkbook from Daddy. So now WWE, again, has to go back to OVW thinking, which is let's create stars instead of signing stars. Which, it could work because it's worked before. I mean, granted, I'm not a big fan of the new NXT. I'm really not. I mean, and we'll get to that. But yeah, this match enjoyable in some ways, but very sloppy. And the ending was just odd.
I don't get Cora Jade either. If it's all the same to you. I mean, I know our thing is that we try not to agree, but on this I agree. I actually found this to be a very AEW type of ending. I find Cora Jade to be a very AEW kind of wrestler, and actually I find NXT 2.0 to not really be what I expected the vision of their reset to be. because of who they, and frankly, the cuts have not been what I expected WWE's reset to be. So while, I thought I understood what their philosophy is, I don't. So I think that, like, there's one of those, tumblers where you pick out bingo balls or whatever. And I think the rules are, contracts don't matter, policies don't matter, visions don't matter, but the rules are, if you put your hand in that wheel and you pull out a name, they're going to get released. That's the only rule that's sacrosanct.
Right. This match was 31 minutes and 22 seconds. Second longest match of the night. Next, we have the NXT Tag Team Championships. You have Imperium, Fabian Aichner and Marcel Barthel versus Kyle O'Reilly and Von Wagner.
Gross. Listen, so happy I was wrong with this match. I didn't have much of a feeling for this match, except that I don't want to see Kyle O'Reilly and Von Wagner as a tag team, and I was dreading them being the tag team champions, and they're not. And I think Imperium is a really solid team. I mean, they're sort of like NXT's version of FTR, sort of. Mm-hmm. I said sort of twice, now 3 times. So I was very happy to be wrong here. The attempted turn, or the turn that was misexecuted by Von Wagner, was awkward and lame, and it leads me to believe that Kyle O'Reilly will still be around for a little bit longer, which disappoints me to no end. And the two of them being boring together is not going to be any better by them feuding, versus being a team. So we're still going to see these guys dancing together, and that's going to be my nap break, weekly.
I actually did nod off during this match, like I mentioned on Messenger. This match was bleh, just bleh.
Yeah. Von Wagner's not good, and and I don't like Kyle O'Reilly, but he's good at his trade. I'm just not interested in him because there's nothing interesting about him. But there was a point where Von Wagner was supposed to do like a leapfrog and land on, I think it was Marcel Barthel, but it doesn't matter which member of Imperium it was, because he couldn't get high enough, which is bizarre because Kyle O'Reilly's like 5'9" or 5'10", and this guy's like 6'5". He couldn't get high enough. He missed it, and so he sort of like did a double slap with his hands on the Imperium guy, and the Imperium guy was a professional, so he took it the same way as if it was a serious impact, but it wasn't. It was just bad. It was up there with when Mandy Rose missed the kick by about 3 inches.
Yeah, Vaughn is just. I said it on Twitter. He needs a gimmick, because whatever they're trying to do with him just ain't working. They need to put a mask on him for one thing, because the fact that they're not self-aware on this dude literally looks like a caveman or a Neanderthal, however you want to put it. It's just he's not very good. He needs a mouthpiece. I mean, they should have kept him in training school because he is not ready. And the whole attack on Kyle, it was bad. Because I kind of called it when me and RJ were giving our predictions last night. I was like, I have a feeling that after the match, Vaughn's going to attack him and be like, I should have been tag team champions, and it didn't pay off, and I kind of predicted it because I said, okay, the way that Kyle looks, that's not how he's just going to get sent off. They're going to have a match on Tuesday, and then Vaughn's going to destroy Kyle, and that's how you're going to write him off. And I was right, because Kyle had an interview saying, I challenge you to a steel cage match, and yeah, so that's
good.
That's what I'm assuming is the main event. And there was a little nod at Undisputed Era after the attack. So
yeah, but also the DX chops. So I mean, Kyle is continually confusing, mixed up, and uninspiring.
Right, and then there was rumors that WWE's trying to sign him back. So, which probably won't be the case.
Please don't. I mean, why? Why? What's the purpose? What more are you going to get from him? What's he going to add? especially if you're not going to job them out.
Whenever they sign him back, I just want you on the show so you can rant about it.
I mean, what you're just going to hear me moan and groan for a while, which I guess is sort of what I'm doing now. So just save it. Just record this and keep the audio. And just play it on the loop.
Sure thing.
Me moaning.
Oh, God. Next is the hair versus hair match. Cameron Grimes versus Duke Hudson. I didn't watch this match, and I'll explain how. So, I walked out during the match because I went to the living room to just talk with the sister-in-law for a bit. I came back to watch a little bit of it, and then the power went out for a second. So, thus the internet went out. And then right when the internet came back up, that's when the match ended.
Okay. This was a match. It was fine. It was not terribly long. The face won, which is good. I got the first two matches wrong. Upset about one, as everyone heard. I'm not happy about the ending of the women's match. Very happy to be wrong about the other match. But got this one right. I don't really see very much in Duke Hudson. Like I see where people look at him and he's almost there. He's almost got things, but I have a feeling he's going to be almost for a long time, and he's going to be almost to future endeavors. So this is fine. Rakai won. The only thing I had an issue with is that he didn't get all the way shaved, and I think when he ran away, I think it was good that Cameron Grimes handled it on his own, but I think that what should have happened is that some of the faces who were not on the card, Odyssey Jones, maybe Briggs and Jensen, some of the other guys. I mean, I guess he's a face, Zion Quinn, whoever they had, the bunch of guys should have come out like lumberjacks and made sure that he stayed in that chair, and they should have shaved him entirely. That's my only issue with it. Aside from that, I think it was fine. Happy that Cameron Grimes did not lose, because seeing him bald would be weird.
Yeah, Cameron Grimes, I gotta admit, he looks nice with the trim beard. He actually looks a lot younger.
He does look good. He's got a baby face. Him being bald, I think, would be a mistake.
Oh, yeah. And then I was gonna call him Frank Dukes. Duke Hudson.
Doesn't matter. You don't need to remember his name.
Duke Hudson is just bad. He's just BAD bad. And
sure.
He's a tall, lumbering white guy that sucks, and that means they're gonna love him.
He does good facial expressions. He's got the voice. He almost has the delivery. He's almost funny. He's almost big, but he's just tall and lanky. And they have a bunch of tall and lanky guys, and they really only need one.
And then speaking of, because you mentioned baby faces, this show is very vignette centric, because you had a lot, which I guess is a good thing, because you want to get people acquainted with the new people. Like who's the one chick, the daddy's girl gimmick? What is it?
Tiffany Stratton.
Tiffany Stratton. There you go. Who I looked her up, and she's obviously a very good looking girl, and she's fucking built, actually built. She's got some muscles on her. So,
I get Peacock with Comcast, so I think while you were seeing vignettes, I was seeing commercials.
Yeah, lucky you.
I did not feel bad about that at all. I'm perfectly content with those commercials.
Lucky you. And then just a bunch of other vignettes about people.
I saw one on the fella who was in the diner this past week on 2.0, and I think his last name is it Carmelo? Is his last name?
I think his last name is Anthony.
His last name is Anthony.
He has a random first name that I can't really remember. So I saw that. I was like, okay. That's my reaction to most of these vignettes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I just don't understand. We heard this big deal. They're not looking for anybody who's not 6'2" and 230, and everyone they're debuting is either substantially shorter than 6'2" and certainly less than 230. I mean, this guy looks like somebody who I would see at a diner. I mean, which is fine in the diner. It's not what I want from my professional wrestling. It's also not what I want when they let go of Braun Strowman and The Fiend and all these monsters, and they're replacing them with basically regular guys, and that's what AEW does. I'm not, I don't know if this is transition until they can get some of these, bigger, non-wrestling athletes trained up to be good enough to be put on the developmental show. But I don't know. I'm confused. I'm legitimately confused about what they're trying to do, because I thought I understood, and so I was going to ride along with it, and they're not producing what was advertised. But I guess I should be used to that by now.
I don't know why. I just thought it was funny when you were like, he looks like somebody that would be in a diner. Like, it's just, for some reason, I'm like, I can picture you in that diner going, who is that guy talking to?
I love diners. I mean, if you want a grilled cheese with tomato and bacon, you can get a grilled cheese with tomato and bacon. You want a pizza burger, you can get a pizza burger. You want an omelet, you're getting an omelet. You want chicken parm, you can get a chicken parm. I mean, there's nothing they cannot give to you at a diner which is either delicious to good enough. I mean, they're perfect. And yes, I'd be happy to see that guy in a diner. I'd have coffee with that guy at a diner. I just don't want to see him wrestle.
All right, fair enough. Let's see. The next match is the Cruiserweight Championship. You have Roderick Strong defending against Joe Gacy.
The match was fine. I don't quite understand what the whole interplay between Ivy Nile and Harlan was. I'm not really sure why Diamond Mine needed to be there. This is another one I'm very disappointed in the ending. I didn't really see the point of it without Joe Gacy winning, because nobody really cares about this title. And I was hoping that Roderick Strong would lose the title, which would lead to his departure as well, so that him and Kyle could both go together, and they could take Gargano with them and all go together. But, I mean, he won, and that means that I'm probably going to lose a bet for dinner that I have with someone out there who said that I bet that Roderick Strong would be released before Christmas. Now, with WWE, the fact that he's got a title really is meaningless. They that could still be, but right now my odds are getting longer. If he lost the belt, my odds would be looking pretty good.
Yeah, it seemed like a for sure thing that they were going to put it on Gacy, because they really like Gacy, and Roderick Strong, they seem to like him too, but Gacy's kind of seems like he seems like the new toy for them. And
he's a character, and his character is working, and they've paired up Harlan, and that's working with Harlan not saying anything. I mean, I have a little gripe that for 2 years we've been hearing Baby Brock, and I mean, he's not Brock at all. He's not really all that big. He's not that much bigger than Gacy, but aside from that, I thought that'd be fun, and with a belt that'd be fun, and having the cruiserweight title nobody cares about being defended, almost like when Samoa Joe took the X title in TNA, and it no longer was like a cruiserweight lightweight belt. All of a sudden, that could be the same here. Like, he changed the name to the open weight or the inclusive title. I mean, that would have been a fun gimmick.
That's actually, it's funny you say that. That's actually what RJ suggested, that he wins it and calls it the open weight title.
Well, RJ is a intelligent man.
He is. He's a rather smart young man. Good dude. But I was really underwhelmed by this match. I thought it was a nice match. Gacy's pretty good in the ring. Roderick, as much shit as I give him, he's good in the ring. And it's just the ending was weird, because I get why Diamond Mine had to be there, because they're a group, and wherever one goes, the other goes, and the whole thing with the girl and Harlan, I just thought was odd. I don't know. I don't know where this goes. I mean, rematch probably. I mean, maybe Gacy can complain and be like, they're inclusivity. Blah, blah. Like, I don't know what he's gonna do. But
yeah, I mean, I don't understand why he was making a big deal about putting Ivy Nile down. I mean, it would make sense in every other context, except that on Tuesday he was having the inclusive title challenge where he, fought one cruiserweight, one woman, and one guy who was obviously, like a 350-pound man. So, I mean, he was ready to throw hands with a woman. So why would he be upset about Harlan doing it? It just wasn't consistent going back to last Tuesday. So I didn't get that, but I agree. I mean, this was a match. Gacy he can wrestle. For a guy who doesn't look like much, he sort of reminds me a little bit of Kevin Owens in a lot of ways. I know that their face doesn't look alike. It's just they have similar hair and facial hair and all that. But he moves pretty well for a fellow that's not built all that differently than me.
I mean, I like the consistency with some things he does, because even when he's because Roddy had him in a submission hold, and instead of he's screaming, but he still has a smile on his face. I'm like, okay, right. that makes sense, because you're still going with the character. Even though you're in pain, you got to smile.
Agree. He knows his character, and he's playing it well, and the character is interesting. It's not like everyone loves it, and I know it's a little bit controversial, but I think it's controversial because it hits home. I mean, and that's good. Wrestling characters should be edgy, and this one is edgy and in WWE. I know it's NXT, but anyway, I think the wrong guy won here, obviously, for lots of reasons, and I'm happy enough to move on for it, but I'm sort of upset that I'm going to continue to see Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong on my USA network.
I think, maybe one more day for Kyle O'Reilly. But next you have the main event, which is the men's War Game match, the longest match of the night. 38 minutes. Actually, let me go back to the Cruiserweight match. That was 8 minutes and 27 seconds, the shortest match of the night. The men's NXT match, Team 2.0 versus Team Black and Gold. Team 2.0 had Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Grayson Waller, and Tony D'Angelo with Trick Williams against Team Black and Gold, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, Pete Dunne, and LA Knight. Before we get into the match, there was an article that came out with Braun Breaker where he talked about how he chose the name. He did an interview with Daily DDT. He said, we were just sitting around one day, and I'm like, well, when I used to block people in football, I used to try and break them in half. That was literally what I tried to do, snap them in half and break them. What if I'm the breaker? I break people. Breaker, with 2 Ks. And then it came to me. Braun is part of my first name, and that's what we went with. And he also went on to mention that he wanted to try and make his own name without relying on the legacy of Rick and Scott, but is fine with certain things being mentioned here and there to remind the fans of the connection. So, mystery solved.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the second time we've heard, it reported that he picked his own name, and still people don't seem to buy it. Okay, but I'm not really one that gets crazy about somebody's name. If the character is good and the wrestler is good and things work, you'll forget about the new name real quick. If they're sort of meandering or it's not good, it's not working, then the name is always going to be part of the reason why they failed. I mean, unless it's like Oni Lorcan, which is just a dumb as shit name. Absent something like, I Suck Daily. It's, your name's going to be Isaac Daly. That'd be funny.
Isaac Bailey.
Isaac Daly. I just came up with that. That's good. Anyway, this was the best match of the night. I mean, it should have been. It's the main event, but this was the best match of the night. And I think that everybody acquitted themselves well. Even Grayson Waller, who I don't like and have really very little interest in, he moves pretty well, and he did that sort of Shane McMahon spot. LA Knight, I think, was one of the stars of this, but everyone, I mean, Tony D'Angelo has a really good working punch. I liked how he was barking out orders. I liked how he locked the cage door, reminiscent of the women's War Games from a year ago. I didn't like how Braun Breaker couldn't cut the chain with the chain. Well, they should have had a weak link prepared for that one. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of callbacks to DIY, the crutch. Even I, the dead inside, even I was sort of that's a good that's a good moment.
Right.
The crowd at some point was chanting DIY. I have to be honest with you, I thought they were chanting CM Punk.
Oh God.
But then it turned out they were chanting DIY, so that's good. There's really no reason why an NXT crowd should be chanting CM Punk, especially during that match. But yeah, I thought everyone did well, and I was saying that there's no point in this match whatsoever unless Braun Breaker gets the pin over Tommaso Ciampa, and he did. So mission accomplished. everything was good. I mean, everyone looked good. Everyone got their stuff in. Dexter Loomis made his return and chased Trick Williams away. I'm not saying it was perfect, but it was good. It was fun. This was a good match.
I didn't really have a problem with the match. Only just one thing. I thought it maybe should have ended 5-10 minutes earlier. That's just my opinion, but otherwise, it was an enjoyable match. The right things happened. Grayson Waller, I think, was the odd man out, in my opinion. I don't think he's very good. I was kind of puzzled by some of the choices in this match. That LA Knight is Team Black and Gold, which, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Did LA Knight debut this year or last year?
No, I think it's in. Oh, geez, no, it was at the end of 2021 because I remember picking him on Hammerlock Hangover to be one of my breakout stars of the year, and then when we did the review the midway review of our predictions, he, I believe, was the North American champion at that point. So, I adjudicated myself as having a correct prediction based on that. But he's been with the company, he signed about a year, and it took, like everyone else, it takes a while before they're actually debuting. But yeah, he doesn't feel like a NXT 1.0 guy. Even right. Pete Dunne doesn't really feel like an NXT 1.0 guy.
Well, I mean, I can deal with Pete Dunne because he's been there for a hot minute. I think it would have made more sense. Granted, a lot of the old school NXT people are gone, so why not put O'Reilly on Team Black and Gold and put Von Wagner on 2.0? Like, I just think that would have made more sense. But anyways, I'll get back to the match. But the match was fine. I mean, I thought it was funny, with the breaker spot where he's trying to cut the gate, but it won't open. Which I'm assuming why didn't they just have like a dummy chain that he can just easily break? But I guess they assumed he was this physical freak. He can just break it or whatever. Or let me repeat myself. A genetic freak.
That's right, a genetic freak.
The largest arms in the world.
Well, you know what? He thought he had a 226 and 2/3 chance of breaking that chain link on the first time, but the numbers did lie this time.
Numbers don't lie. But I liked how dominant he looked because he's good at selling, but at the same time he doesn't try to look like he's indestructible, if that makes sense. They're not trying to make him look too much like Brock. They're making him look like a beast, but they're making him look like he's still out there getting hurt. There's a spot where Pete Dunne is punching him, and then he just kind of turns around that the best you got, and then he just hits Pete Dunne back. So, and then
Matt Riddle, less Randy Orton.
Right, exactly. Yeah, good analogy. And then Gargano bringing the old school music back, which I actually thought was pretty cool. And and the DIY music, the DIY chants I thought were cool. Grayson Waller with the spot at the cage, I thought was cool. That was probably the only good thing he did during the match. But I just think the match maybe went on a little bit too long. Probably should have ended maybe 5 or 7 minutes earlier. But other than that, fun match. The right guy got the pin. Breaker should have got the pin, and eventually he's gonna get the title.
I think for one night only, they could have had Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong on the 2.0 team. To have Von Wagner on the other team, I know why you're saying it makes sense. I simply don't think he's good enough to be in there, and he's too big and clunky for them to work around him. And I think that might have played into the choice if it was ever even being considered. But I'm glad Von Wagner wasn't in that. But if they were going to lose, why not be Strong, O'Reilly, Dunn? I'm not sorry. It was Ciampa, Gargano, Strong, and O'Reilly, and Dunn could have been the odd man out, or maybe they could have made the cruiserweight title a 3-way or something if they wanted to get him on the card.
Or why not just make it 5-on-5? I don't know. Maybe
that too.
Maybe they want too many people in the ring, I guess. But
Yeah, they do have a lot of rookies in there. I mean, I think they did pretty well with it. I mean, again, it wasn't perfect. There was a lot of time where they were. I mean, why they insist on doing all the tables in the match when these guys were having trouble getting the tables in, and the table legs were opening, and all these guys have to pretend that they're down and out forever, and Trick Williams threw the chair in once, and he basically almost killed Grayson Waller, with the throw. So maybe 4-on-4 was about as good as they could get, and might have still been too much clutter. But again, I don't have any serious problems with this match. I thought it was the highlight of the night. So,
all right. So highlights and lowlights of War Games.
Highlight. I will give the nod to the DIY crutch acknowledgement as a highlight. I will give Gigi Dolan my surprise performance award of the night. Low light to me is Joe Gacy losing, and anything that involves Von Wagner.
I think we're on the same boat. I thought Gigi Dolan was a star in that match, and the crowd seemed to think so. And it also helps that she's easy on the eyes. Braun Breaker getting the pin and looking like a beast, and the DIY acknowledgments, the Undisputed Era acknowledgments. Lowlights, Cora Jade getting the pin because it just was weird. It would have made more sense if Toxic Attraction got the win, specifically Gigi, since she was a superstar out there, and then Joe Gacy losing because I don't know. I guess they want to continue it, and Von Wagner is just he's my new Baron Corbin. At least Baron Corbin has a character. Von Wagner just I don't know what the fuck he's supposed to be. He's bland as fuck. I'll take Madcap Moss over Von Wagner at this point.
This is close, but I can't say you're wrong. And I mean, this is hard for me to say, but definitely Baron Corbin over Von Wagner at this point. The only thing I'll say about Von Wagner is presumably he's younger, or at least younger in his development. So I mean, I suppose he can get better. And this saddens me because he's a second or third generation wrestler. I remember Wayne Bloom. I liked Wayne Bloom. And I liked Cal Bloom when I didn't see him that much, close up and doing the wrestling thing, just sort of as a big guy that was getting in the way of things. I don't know. This is weird. It's just very weird, but yeah, very much looks less like Wayne Bloom's son than like if the Great Khali maybe mated with Medusa. You pick the wrestler or Gorgon, either one.
Oh man, but that was NXT War Games. If you had to give it any grade, what would you give it?
It's developmental. It wasn't too long. I'll give it a solid B. If I'm going to grade a developmental on a curve, I'd go with a B+, but B+.
I'm going to have to be the mean guy. I'm going to have to give it a C.
Okay, that's fine.
Just I'll give it a C. C minus. I'll be nice. C minus at least. But
so you're gonna be nice and lower the grade.
Okay, C plus. There you go. C plus. I'm gonna give it a C plus. People.
Listen,
C+.
You give whatever grade you want, but just when you say I'm gonna be nice and you lower it a half a grade, that's just
that's my version of being nice, Jeff. Hey, okay. We can't agree on everything, Jeff, or otherwise the world will fall into catastrophe.
No, I just thought that we could agree on what the definition of nice was, but I guess not even that.
I mean, there is like maybe one bit of news I want to speak about. It's not wrestling related. Sure. This actually just came up. So on comicbook.com, Kevin Feige was speaking to Cinema Blend on Sunday, which is today, and he commented on the future of Daredevil in the MCU. Do you want to know what his comments were, Jeff?
Sure.
He said, if you were to see Daredevil in upcoming things, Charlie Cox, yes, will be the actor playing Daredevil. Where we see that, how we see that, when we see that, remains to be seen. End quote. So,
I mean, Daredevil being in the MCU makes a lot of sense. I know there's a lot of fondness towards Charlie Cox and how he portrayed the character. He worked his ass off to get in great shape. My only concern is that Charlie Cox wasn't that young beforehand. Daredevil ran for, I think, 4 seasons, and it's been 3 or 4 years since they filmed one. So, I mean, I think maybe I would have preferred if they went with a younger guy and started over. I mean, I trust their casting. I'm not, I'm not like you where I have a lot of affinity towards most actors, but I mean, I do some. Like if they replace Chris Hemsworth, with a different Thor, I'd be pissed. So I understand where you're coming from. I guess like I really enjoyed Daredevil season 1, but after that, I thought that they each got progressively worse, and the Defenders was terrible, and the whole thing with the hand I thought was bad. But it's cool. That's a familiarity. I'm glad for Charlie Cox. Anyone who can get a role, especially a recurring one with the MCU, is guaranteed to have a living wage for the rest of their life. So cool. That's I'm all for it. And Daredevil and New York City. That makes sense. It's you shouldn't have Gotham City without Batman in it. And you shouldn't have New York without Daredevil in it.
Well, I mean, if you remember the first season, technically it was part of the MCU, even though it wasn't like out and about, because they would make mention to the Avengers. They would talk about the incident in New York, and
right. And they said there's a big green guy and somebody flying with a hammer or something. I remember the lines, but it was parallel,
right? And just I guess that's fair to say I have an affinity for certain actors because, they could have easily recast the role, but it's just like, I don't know. I like Charlie Cox in the role. I think he's a great Daredevil. I mean, I don't know how old he is, but, I mean, the rumor is that he fought to play Daredevil again, and I think, Tom Hiddleston actually fought to get him in, because they did a play together, and he apparently went to Kevin Feige, and he's like, let's bring him in the MCU. Let's find a way, and now that
they're both UK actors, so I'm sure that they've been friends. But listen, this is not a big issue for me. This is fine.
Oh no, I'm not saying it is. I'm just like kind of speaking my piece. But so I mean, yeah, Charlie Cox is again being coy about it. He's like, well, I'm not going to come back. I'm not going to be in Spider-Man. Yes, you are.
Sure. Sure. Why would you want a job?
No. He's not saying it condescendingly. He has to be coy about it. He can't just out and about say I'm in it. Like he has to deny it. He has to deny.
It's fine.
You know what I mean? So he'll be in Spider-Man 3.
Just don't bring that guy who played Iron Fist back.
Actually, I'm gonna be the lone guy. I actually liked Iron Fist, but that's another story for another time. But that could be.
I'm sure you're from San Antonio. Well, I'm sure it involves like peyote then.
That could be another episode of From Our Lips to Your Ears. And then John Bernthal talked about playing the Punisher in the MCU. He basically just said, I don't care what they do with it, just get it right. Don't water it down.
You know who I want to play the Punisher in the MCU?
Who?
Randy Orton.
Why do you want Randy Orton to be the Punisher?
I mean, he basically is the Punisher. He's just a wrestler. He doesn't care. He's got the stone face. It's absolutely believable that he wants to kill you and will kill you, and doesn't care if he does. I mean, he's a Viper. That's what the Punisher was. So yeah, strap him up and get him in there. John Bernthal was fine, but the Punisher's another one where season 1 was pretty cool. But I mean, he's a regular guy and was recovering in 2 or 3 days from wounds that anybody would need 6-7 months to recover from, if at all. And I just don't dig that. They went a little bit crazy on the violence without explanation as to how to recover when you've got a nurse who is working in the basement doing it. So anyway, Randy Orton.
It's a comic book, Jeff. Like cut him some slack.
Well, but it's a comic book. But there's Wolverine, and there's like people with superpowers, and then there's people without.
I don't know. I don't know. Well, there was one scene that I kind of had to go, okay. It was in season 1, and it's the scene where he's getting tortured by not Jigsaw, but I guess the guy that was with Jigsaw, and the guy's just beating the fuck out of him and cutting him up. And there was a point where the Punisher was dripping blood, and the guy was putting a towel on his face. And then when the guy takes the towel off his face, you just magically see all the blood off of the Punisher's face. I'm like, okay, like, what kind of fucking... is this like a ShamWow? Or whatever? Yeah. Like, come on, that's too much. But...
it was bounty.
Yeah, eventually they'll bring the Punisher in, but they have to let the Punisher be the Punisher. But
I felt the same way with Daredevil and the Silver Samurai fight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when that like mini guillotine on a chain slices into your stomach several times, I mean, that's not something you recover from in a few days when your offal is sliced. It just isn't. So anyway. And listen, it's not like they couldn't have found ways to do it within the MCU. The Defenders had a relationship with Doctor Strange. He could probably do healing. They could have bumped into the Scarlet Witch. She could have done healing. Something. There could have been something there. There could have been some leftover Luke Cage power serum or whatever, some super soldier stuff there. I don't know. Just these are the little things that bothered me about it as the show got further and further off the rails. I think if they just kept it simpler, I would have liked it better.
Yeah, I think Daredevil was maybe the better one out of the bunch. Season 1 was good. I mean, season 1 was great. It was a masterpiece. And season 2, I mean, the selling point was, they brought the Punisher and Elektra in, and then it was kind of a mixed bag. And then season 3, I thought, was actually very good with Bullseye. And then the other shows, Jessica Jones was good in the first season, then it got weird.
First season was... Luke Cage, first season I liked until the last episode.
Luke Cage, I thought, could have been at least 8 episodes. It didn't need to be 13 episodes. And then season 2 was... Yeah,
season 2 was not good.
I mean, the stuff with the father I thought was pretty good, but other than that, I just didn't really care. The great Reggie E. Cathy. Iron... And like I said, Iron Fist, I enjoyed it. I'm sorry, I enjoyed it. I thought it was...
I don't accept your apology.
I thought season 2 was actually better than the first season, but again, that's a conversation we can have for our Patreon exclusive show.
Those shows again.
What was that?
I'm not watching those shows again.
Oh, you don't have to. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying we can just talk about it. But anyways, anything else you want to bring up?
No. For the MCU, I want to see more obscure characters. I want to see, like, I think the easiest thing is sort of some of these like deep cut Shield characters, like Stingray or people like Jack of Heart, sort of like so lesser known characters, but they were always sort of hovering around like Stark World, Shield World, Avengers World. Okay, so this is a little bit of a tease of the Patreon show that we're working on, because one of the things that, listen, I'm frustrating in lots of ways, but one of the ways I'm particularly frustrating to Drew is that he knows every actor in pop culture, and I know like none of them except for the ones who are like sort of my age or like really big stars. So I had no idea who Harry Styles was, and I still don't. I just happen to know he played Star Fox at the end, and I don't really know who Star Fox is except I Googled him. So we're going to do like a little trivia game where Drew is going to ask questions about people that I absolutely should know who they are, and I'm not going to know 98% of them.
Well, I mean, I just know names. I'm not saying I know every person. It's just like I just happen to remember names. Like Harry Styles, I've heard that name because he was in that One Direction band, and that's really about it. Because again, we'll get into more of it on our show, but I'll just say this: when at the post credit scene, whenever he came out, there was a row of girls behind me screaming for him.
Yeah, there were a row of young people, a couple rows ahead of me, screaming too. I just assumed it was because he was on I don't know what's like a teen soap now, like the Vampire Diaries or something. I don't know. I don't know who these people are. I was singing the praises of the King of Staten Island and the star is Pete Davidson. You're asking me about Pete Davidson. I'm like, who's Pete Davidson? He's like, you're talking about him. I'm like, I don't know who that is. It's like, it's the star. Like, which star? I mean, it's an ensemble cast. Is it the tall, skinny guy? And you're like, yeah, it's a tall, skinny guy. And like, apparently, like he's like banged like all of the hot actresses and whatever. Like, he's like constantly punching, upwards, which is hard for a guy who's like 7 feet tall. Didn't know his name. Now I do, but I didn't.
You said I said that, or Steve said that?
That he's banging lots of women?
Who'd you say got mad at you saying he's the star of the fucking film?
You! Steve and I don't talk about movies.
Oh yeah, that does sound like something I would say. I'm like, yeah, but yeah, I don't get mad if you don't know the actor. It's just I don't know. I'll just be like, oh, the actor is so and so.
You were furious. You were like turning green and Hulk like.
Well, I mean, I think if I got furious, I'm like, dude, you said you liked the movie and you don't even know who the actor is. You don't even know who the star of the film is. But...
I thought it was the best direct-to-streaming movie of the year, practically. And definitely in the top 5, maybe top 3. And I have no idea who the actor was. The only one I know is Steve Buscemi. Okay,
I'm not going to hold that against you, but yeah, again, that's we're going to save the good stuff for the Patreon show. But Mr. Lippman, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And hey, we kept this pretty short, under an hour. So well done, old man. Well done.
I'm an old man? Come on.
It's an expression, but well done, young man. Well done.
Thank you, old man. You're not old. I'm sorry. You're.
I'm full drinking age, older than you.
You're a spry. You're a spry youngster.
Except when I move.
Anyways, go ahead and plug your stuff, Mr. Lippman.
Well, I was going to do that off the air. Okay, my show, Garden of Doom, non-wrestling, sort of alternative, supernatural, religious, mythology, stuff like that. Got a lot of authors recently coming on. This dropped an episode this week with a recurrent, a return guest, a little bit of positivity. So check that out and check out the show. It's rarely the same thing twice. It's never the same thing twice. Wrestling podcast, the prime one where I'm always a co-host, Hammerlock Hangover with Big Daddy Cool Stephen Pena. And that's on Wrestling Soup Network, the PWC, and the @Mark Media Group. I am also a fairly regular on a bunch of PWC shows, but specifically Smack Talk, which we just released an episode today, and it's hysterical. It is only loosely a wrestling show this week, and I basically torment my co-host Jimmy from Australia. So do check that out. You're either going to love it or you're absolutely going to hate it. There'll be nothing in between. I do some other shows with them too. I've been on the blow off, which used to be called Hitting the Marks, and some other stuff. But of note to the folks here, I'm on a Patreon show with Drew Yari. It's called From Drew's Lips to Your Ears. So we just talked about how we're working on a concept for a new show. Drew will drag me into talking about the Eternals, which I actually do have a lot of thoughts of, but I'm sort of getting slow motion Aquaman syndrome, where I sort of enjoyed Aquaman while I was watching it, but I knew that I really didn't like it. But like almost immediately I started realizing, like after the movie was over, that I hated it, and I hate it more all the time. Eternals, I actually, I liked while I watched it, but I continued to like it for a while. But the more I thought about it, I realized that there's lots of things I don't really like about it. Now, some of it is because there's things about the Marvel Universe that I don't know, that sort of came after I checked out. But, the movies are supposed to be for everybody, not just the deep cut comics. But I still will say that The Eternals is Marvel's first DC movie, and it would still be probably one of the top 3 DC movies that's not, like one of the Batman classics.
Well, fun fact is Jack Kirby, when he left Marvel, he went to DC to write New Gods, and then he ended up leaving DC and came back to Marvel and wrote The Eternals, which, again, essentially the same thing. But anyways, You heard Mr. Lippman. The show's called From Our Lips to Your Ears. It's a Patreon exclusive. Head over to the Patreon. Just pay $5 a month. It's a pretty good deal. It gets you the show with Mr. Lippman over here. It's technically his show. It also gets you more shows that I do with other podcasters, good friends of mine. Mr. RJ, Little RJ the Brooklyn Savage. Our show is called Revenge of the Savage Nerds. And we just did a show yesterday. It's a pretty good show. I think you guys should really check it out. And I do a show with Mr. Ruben Prime. It's called Worst of the Worst. And we haven't done one in a minute, so I need to get with Ruben on that. I'm supposed to be on Ruben's show this coming Tuesday. It's my first appearance on the Ruben Prime podcast, so check that out. And I already talked with the boys, so we're able to coordinate a schedule. So December 29th is going to be the year-end awards. So Wednesday, December 29th. I already sent out the nominees to the boys, and look for it. It's gonna be a good show. It's gonna be good shit. And, and that's really about it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed War Games, maybe more than most people. And I hope you guys enjoyed this show. I hope you guys have a great week, and all I gotta say is peace.
Stay evil, my friends.